Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to Professional Oklahoma Educators' Bite-Sized Learning Podcast, where bite-sized changes can have a big impact in the classroom. This is Season 1, Episode 7, and I'm Jason Bings, the Director of Professional Learning at POE and the host of this podcast. In this episode, I plan to talk about preparing for the new school year and, in particular, developing your plan for the year. Most of you are on summer break and will probably not be thinking about your classroom for a few days at least. So what I would like to do is dedicate a few episodes to preparing for the next school year. I offered some suggestions in episode 6 to help you prioritize your time over the summer break. I know full well that many of you will be spending a significant amount of time this summer getting ready for your students to return to you in the fall. For those of you who've been in the field for a while, these next few episodes may be old news to you, but it doesn't hurt to have a refresher. If you're new to the field, or feel like you've been struggling to keep your head above water the last few years, then this series is for you. I've titled this episode The Plan for one very simple reason. Without a plan, you're more likely to fail. I know you're thinking you've heard that cliche phrase before, but it's true. So let me give you a few thoughts to kind of tell you why I'm focusing on your plan. When you go on a trip, you make travel arrangements. You plan where you're going to stay, what you're going to do, how you're going to get there, and what you're going to eat, right? Before you go to the store, you make a list that helps you plan out what you will get while you're at the store. If you don't, you often spend way more time than you intend to, way more money, and you walk out with several items you don't really need. When we're talking about school, planning is just as important. I would even say it's more important because the decisions you make can have an impact on your students for years to come. So what should you plan first? Do you take care of your management plan, your room arrangement, your curriculum plan? What about your beginning of the year activities? There are endless possibilities as to what you could work on first, but before you begin planning, we need to make sure we're in the right frame of mind. So here are some questions to guide you through the planning process, or at least to help you get focused before planning. Number 1, what's the purpose of education? I know you're probably thinking to yourself, why do I need to answer that question? I already know the answer. I'm a teacher. I know what the purpose of education is. The purpose of education is... But wait, don't be so quick to answer that question. Have you really thought about that question in a while? What is the purpose of education? Question 2. What is a good teacher? Think about some of the effective teachers you've worked with, the good teachers you've worked with, or that you were a student of. What made them quote-unquote good? Question 3. What is good teaching? Good teaching is different from being a good teacher. So what is good teaching? What does it look like? If you walk into a classroom, how would you know good teaching is going on? Question 4. What type of teacher am I? Are you more authoritarian or democratic? Are you relational or aloof? Are you fair or just? Question 5. What level of control do I want to have in the classroom? Do you want to have a quiet classroom? Will your room be filled with the sounds of active learning? Question 6. How will that level of control be evident in my classroom? You might also ask yourself, what will engagement look like in my classroom? Question 7. How will I handle behavior issues in my classroom? My hope is that whatever response you have towards behavior issues in your classroom, they will maintain the dignity of your students and be trauma sensitive. All of these questions are part of the background information you need in order to develop a successful classroom management plan and help you to begin your preparation for the coming school year. If you've been in the classroom for a few years, you hopefully have a classroom management plan that you consistently employ. If you don't have one, then I would suggest you begin developing one now. If you can start several weeks before school begins again, you will have time to think about it and make sure it aligns with your understanding of students and learning. If you already have a plan in place, take some time to reflect on the plan to see what might need to be modified before you begin school next year. Something else to keep in mind is if your current plan is trauma sensitive. There are modifications you'd need to make then, if it's not, so that your daily procedures facilitate proper responses and interactions with students that have experienced trauma. With the potential for additional disruptions in the coming school year, you might also develop a plan for your online management. Since many of you have had some experience with it as you wrapped up the last school year, you have a good idea of what worked and what didn't work. Now you can develop a plan for future online learning if the need arises. Right now it's unclear what districts are going to do next year, but many of them are developing plans that might incorporate online learning days. In fact, some districts already have had this as a possibility that they use during inclement weather situations. If you're part of one of those districts, you have a leg up on the others. Once you have your management plan, and your online management plan for that matter, you can begin working on your lessons and curriculum for the new school year. You may already have a pacing calendar developed, but it may need to be modified this year in order to accommodate any material that students missed at the end of the previous year. What I'm talking about, though, is going beyond that pacing calendar. I would go ahead and plan out your first few weeks in extreme detail and have a rough outline for the first quarter. Go ahead and plan around the scheduled days off and begin pulling resources together for your students. If you get a head start on this and can have your first few weeks already planned out, you'll start the year much more stress-free. You might also begin to lay out your classroom. You may not be able to do this physically yet, but you can get some grid paper or some online format that would let you sketch out a plan for your classroom layout. Something to keep in mind this year, though, is that you may have to make sure your plans allow for extra distance between students. That is something that may need to be considered. The more of these type of items you can take care of now, the better off you're going to be. I know the years that I waited until the last minute were the years that I started the year out stressed, frustrated, and extremely exhausted. You're going to need extra energy in the first few weeks of school, and by doing these planning items early, you can be at your best when the school year starts. I understand that you may not want to think about these items right now, but I wouldn't wait until a week before you have to report back to school to handle them. Hopefully, you'll get some benefit from these suggestions. If you have other ideas, let us know. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. Please share and comment to let us know how we can help you and others. You may leave your comments in your podcatcher of choice, but to guarantee we receive them in a timely manner, go to bit.ly/bite-sized-pod and complete the form. If you would like to schedule a professional learning session for your school or an online meeting, you can send an email to pd@apoe.org. If you would like more information about professional Oklahoma educators, check out our website, www.apoe.org. You can find the links to this podcast and blog under the Resources tab on the APOE website, or by going to poebite-sized-learning.blogspot.com. You can also find POE on Facebook, apoe.org, and on Twitter @ProfOklaEDU.